7 years ago, we started with a pretty simple but powerful idea, which was to get more Indian Americans elected to public office, and from school councils to, all the way to the houses and now the vice president. And it has been an amazingly successful mission, if you can say that. And Raj brought me the idea, by the way. We worked together on it for a couple of years before we launched in 2016. And it has been just an incredible experience. Just to give you some numbers, when we launched Impact, I think the Indian American community was represented. We had 6 or 7 or 8 folks in the state houses, which is a really critical place for us. And now we are up to 50. So we are up by a factor of 5 to 7. And we have 5 really strong congressmen and women in the House. And of course, we are really proud of our vice president. So thank you for all of this work. So even as we remain true to our core mission, we have expanded our reach to get our community more involved. And that's been a pretty critical development, for Impact in the last few years. We have built coalitions to get the vote out. We made, by the way, a significant difference, if I can say so, in 6 or 7 critical Senate races in 2022. And I think that they really added to the majority that we have in the Senate. And we did the same thing, for the House. So these coalitions that we have built have really been extremely important, for us. And then we have opened chapters, by the way, in Texas, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. And overall, our aspiration is to build our community into a political force that and with the bridges that we are building to other community, we can really enlarge our impact, in the country. So thank you for your support, and thank you for being here. And now I would like to introduce you to our first keynote speaker. We have 2 keynote speakers tonight. Thank you so much. Our first keynote speaker is Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Leader Jeffries made history as the first African-American lawmaker to lead a party in Congress. We have all witnessed his political acumen, ability to walk across the aisle, and getting the deals done. So thank you very much, Leader Jeffries, for what you have done in the very recent past. And let me just leave you with a quote from Leader Jeffries. He says that we may have come over on different ships, but we are all in the same boat now, and that is his leadership style. So without further ado, I'm just pleased to introduce Leader Jeffries.
Good evening, everyone. What an honor and a privilege to be here. Thank you, Deepak, for your friendship, for your support, for that very generous introduction, for your incredible leadership. You and Raj have taken an idea and built an incredible thing. And we're so thankful for the vision, for the work, for the execution in terms of what Indian American Impact has become. And we know that there's so much more that will continue to come out of this incredibly important initiative. To my colleagues in government who are here, of course, Raja Krishnamurthy, Ro Khanna, 2 incredible members of the House Democratic Caucus, and then Sri Thanadar, who's the newest member. Where's Sri? It's good to see you, Sri. And of course, I know Pramila was with you earlier, and Ami Berra's my classmate. We came in together. Wonderful, wonderful members of the House Democratic Caucus. Of course, to my colleague on the other side of the Capitol, Cory Booker, who you'll hear from. We're so thankful I guess I'm just Cory Booker's warm-up act today, y'all. But what an honor and a privilege to be with all of you. And I congratulate you on the conference that you had earlier today, an incredibly successful conference, incredibly important meetings, diving into policy issues of great significance to the Indian American community, but also to the nation at large. And that is what this phenomenal effort, Impact, has really meant. Thanks to Neil, who I know has done a wonderful job as the executive director. And congratulations on your recent success in winning a seat on the Montgomery County Commission. Now, we take pride, those of us who serve together in the House of Representatives, in the fact that the House, we believe, was the institution that was designed by the framers of the Constitution to be that institution closest to the American people, to reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, the anxieties, and in their words, the passions of the American people. It's a great institution in that regard. But for us to truly be that institution that reflects in the most authentic, intimate way possible what's on the minds of the American people, the values of the American people, the life experiences of the American people, then the House must look like the American people. And that's why the efforts that you've already undertaken to send these extraordinary members of Congress that I mentioned to Washington to serve not just the Indian American community, bringing important values in that regard, but to reflect what is the gorgeous mosaic of the American people and the important role that the Indian American community has played in that journey. Because we are a nation of immigrants. Our diversity is, we believe, a strength, not a weakness, an economic strength, a cultural strength, a competitive strength. Our diversity is not a weakness. We are a gorgeous mosaic of people who have come from all over the world. A nation of immigrants, some voluntary, others involuntary. As Deepak mentioned, John Lewis often reminded us about that reality that we may have come over on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. We're white, we're black, we're Latino, we're Asian, we're Native American, we're Christian, we're Jewish, we're Hindu, we're Buddhist, we're religious, we're secular, we're gay, we're straight, we're young, we're older, we're women, we're men, we're citizens, we're dreamers. Out of many, we are one. That's what makes America a great country. And no matter what kind of xenophobia is going on amongst the right-wing extremists in this country, we're not going to let anyone take that away from us, not now, not ever. That's what Impact represents. That's what your values represent. That's what this effort and this room represents in such an extraordinary way. And in closing, let me just simply reflect on the fact that 100 years ago, the Supreme Court, in an infamous decision, had the temerity to declare that under United States law, a person of Indian descent could not, under law, become a naturalized citizen of this country. One of the most offensive, wrong-headed decisions that the Supreme Court has ever issued. But you know, this country was not founded as a perfect country. We had challenges. There were wonderful ideals. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equally entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, land of the free, home of the brave, liberty and justice for all. High ideals, but not a perfect country, perfect in the articulation of those words, not perfect in terms of the implementation. But what we also know about the American journey is that we continue to be on a march toward a more perfect union. That it's because generation after generation after generation, like all of you have done, step up to try to perfect America, make America the best version of herself. That's what Impact represents. And 100 years ago, the Supreme Court issues that infamous decision. But as we stand here today at this celebratory gala, looking back on the journey that the Indian American community has been on, we can all pause and acknowledge the fact that we have an Indian American mayor 100 years later, Aftab, who's here today, of a major American city in Cincinnati. We have a woman of Indian descent sitting as the Vice President of the United States of America. And we have 5 extraordinary Indian American members of the House of Representatives, more Indian Americans serving in the House right now than at any other point in American history, and Impact is just getting started. So as long as we together continue to show up and speak up and stand up, I'm confident that for the Indian American community and for all of this great country, the best is yet to come. God bless you, God bless Impact, and may God bless the United States of America. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Leader Jeffries. One more. And now it's my privilege to introduce our next distinguished speaker. As many of you know, I am from New Jersey. And, whoa! And Senator Booker has been my senator for the last several years. More importantly, he has been my friend. He was present when we launched Impact at the Democratic National Convention in Philadelphia in 2016. He keynoted the first Impact Summit. I'm forgetting the year now, Senator, 2018, I think. And he is just an incredibly supportive, steadfast friend of ours. So thank you very much. Overall, he's a tireless advocate for justice and equality, a true friend of our community, and a leader who embodies the spirit of public service. Thanks for all you do, Senator, and please, love to hear from you.
Hello, everybody. All right, good evening. I have been blessed in my life to see the greatness of 2 Rajes, Deepak Raj and Raj Goyle. I cannot tell you what it means to me to be here 7 years later after watching this go from thought to action, from imagination to reality. This gathering right here is a great American gathering. And I am deeply grateful to stand before you yet again and have a few moments to share some heart with a room full of spirit. I first want to say that my dear friend and brother Hakeem Jeffries introduced like half the room, for crying out loud. So I'm going to do the one person I think that he forgot, who is the only person I know of in this room, that President Biden, when he was thinking about how to pursue justice in America, looked to this person to be the third highest ranking person in the entire Justice Department. This is truly a person that is physically far shorter than I am, but I look up to her. She is a giant for justice, and that is my good friend Vanita Gupta. Yes, yes. Enough of the introductions of all the brown men. We finally have a great woman here. I also know I join everybody in this room who has a heavy heart. There was a horrific train crash in India. The beautiful thing about America, whether it's an earthquake in Haiti or a tsunami in Thailand, we're the #1 country on the planet for stepping up and giving resources. I know it from the United States because we do billions of dollars, for example, in food aid. But the other thing that's powerful about our nation is that individually, we know we're Americans, but we also know we're part of a larger family. The outpouring of support and sympathy and anguish about the death in this horrible train accident is something that is real and deep, and I just want to join with this entire crowd for a moment and giving our deepest prayers for the people who are survivors and for the people who have lost loved ones. I stand here feeling the sense of patriotism because I know the truth of our nation. We were founded in the greatest ideals. We're the first nation that really broke with humanity and said, we will found a nation like none other. We will be a nation not founded on a common religion. We're not a theocracy. We're not going to be founded based upon some belief in the divine right of kings and queens. We're not a monarchy. We're not founded as a nation that shares a common ethnicity. Even in the very founding days of this nation, there was extreme diversity of the people that were actually on this soil. Our founders broke with the course of human events and said, we are founding a nation on virtue. These imperfect geniuses struggled to put documents together that incorporated the highest ideals of humanity, drawing from thought from all around the globe, putting forth this democratic ideal. Indeed, the founding documents reflect the imperfections of the people. Women were not referred to at all. Native Americans were called savages in our founding documents. Blacks were fractions of human beings, but yet they put forth this idea that the calling of humanity is to make manifest democratic principles, freedom and justice, human rights. And they called upon humanity to every generation in this country, we will fight to make, as the leader said, a more perfect union. Now, the challenge we've seen in generation after generation is that often this nation that began with these inclusive ideas tried to present itself with a degree of exclusivity and not allowing everyone to participate. And every generation of Americans has fought to make this nation greater by having more participation and inclusion. And the powerfully patriotic thing about this room tonight is that it is very much in that vaunted, hallowed, sacred tradition of Americans that may not have been seen, as the speaker said in his remarks, that even our Supreme Court denied the very dignity and humanity of an Indian American that fought in World War I for America. Even though there is those dark times of our past, this nation is a story of a people who, even though they were not included, fought to make this nation better and more inclusive. That is our collective story. When women were denied voting rights, they still fought to make this democracy better. When Native Americans faced the most horrific kind of violence and subjugation, they still fought to make this nation better. People from different faiths and different religions all coming together in the cause of America. And this understanding, written in the final words of our Declaration of Independence, that we must sacrifice. They said at the end that it takes a sacrifice of our lives, our fortune, or our sacred honor. And so this is the exciting thing for me, and also the challenging thing for me, is that many Americans are forgetting the blessings they've inherited and decide that they are just going to luxuriate in the blessings of being a part of 4% of all of humanity in the greatest nation on earth, that they will just rest. It is so many of our leaders from many different backgrounds who have said the truth that the challenge to this nation is apathy. Martin Luther King said it, that the problem we must repent for in this day and age is not just the vitriolic words or violent actions of the bad people, it's the appalling silence and inaction of the good people. And so here we are. This understanding of the urgency of inclusion, the understanding that we have to fight and work and struggle for America. I love this story that was told in the context of the game of American football, but just in honor of tonight, I'm going to tell it in the honor of cricket. There was a guy that went to see his cricket coach very upset. He was the most successful cricket player. He scored more. I don't know, what do they do in cricket? Maybe they score. They score. They score runs. He was the best run scorer of all the cricket people on the team. And he goes to the coach and goes, "Why wouldn't you pick me as the captain of the team? I score more runs than anyone else. I am the best player on the team." And the captain said, "Yes, you are the best player on the team. But I chose the other person because he's the best player for the team." When Raj Goyle and Deepak Raj looked to found this organization, they knew of the greatness of the Indian community. Heck, you could see it everywhere. Indian Americans making strides in every single part of our society. From science and technology, innovation and entrepreneurship. Heck, even today, about 60 of the Fortune 500 companies are led by people of Indian descent. But that's not enough. It's not enough. Because the one area that was obvious that the Indian South Asian community was lacking was in elected office. Our Congress did not reflect the power and the influence of the Indian American community. Our Senate didn't reflect it. State houses didn't reflect it. Governor's offices didn't reflect it. If we are to be a great inclusive democracy, we need everybody that is on the team in roles that are fighting for the team. And so this is that organization. I have never seen in such a short time an organization go from idea to reality, from looking for candidates, recruiting candidates, training candidates, supporting candidates. One thing I love, writing checks to candidates. And seeing those candidates actually get elected. I live in New Jersey. Thank you very much, Jersey folk. We have the highest percentage of South Asian Americans per capita of any state. But we did not have enough people in elected office in our state. And so as everybody gets ready for this dinner, I want to do two things. Remind you that in all of Washington right now, and I've got a busy day, and this is not my last thing to swing by or do tonight, I want you to know that as a United States Senator, I believe that this is one of the most important and patriotic rooms in our country. Because this is about making our nation thrive with the greatness of who we are. And the only way I know for our nation to achieve the necessary success is for it to have more people who have something to offer, to have voice and vision, to have spirit and strength, to have ancestral roots in this nation and fruits to bear, the only way I know that for happening is for the Indian American community to continue to rise in public life, in public office, in elected positions, and God bless America, I hope more in the Senate in the future. So let me finish with this. Simple personal story. I was working with some young kids, and I consider myself a pretty visionary guy, and I wanted to do an exercise with the young kids. And I was there with them after this summer program. It was hot, it was sweaty, it was August, and I gathered them all together. It was already time to go, but I said, give me one more minute. I want to do an exercise with you. And I wanted to do the exercise of asking them to raise their hands as high as they could. And then I was going to say, as soon as you got your hands raised as high as you could, now go 3 inches higher. Because I wanted to give them the lesson that you can always do a little more. You think you're giving enough, you can do a little more. You can go that extra inch or 3 inches, a little bit harder work. And that was going to be my lesson. And so I said to the kids, all right, raise your hands 3 inches, as high as you can, rather. And nobody moved. And I realized that I had to use some persuasion to get these kids to participate in this exercise. And so I resorted to a very base form of persuasion that we know nothing about in politics. It's called bribery. And now Vanita's got her notebook out now. Now she's writing. I'm with the Justice Department, Cory. Be careful here. You're on thin ice. I pulled out $5 and I said to the kid, this $5 goes to the kid that can raise his hand the highest. And suddenly these kids for a moment looked like they were doing a bit of calculus. They were innate capitalists, and they tried to figure out if the effort was worth the reward. And then all of a sudden they realized $5. They shot their hands up, and all the kids are now participating, comparing their hands to each other. I'm feeling this smug sense of satisfaction that I was able to use my superior psychology and get them to do this exercise. And then all of a sudden I looked to my left, and there was the shortest and the youngest kid in the lot. His name was Robert. And all the tall kids, the older kids, were comparing and looking at themselves and arguing who's the highest. And Robert just looked like he was a little dejected. His arms were crossed. His face was in a pout. And then suddenly, he turns around and starts running out the room. And I just feel bad that I squelched this kid's spirit. And I run after him to stop him from running away from this exercise. I get 3 steps in, and I grab him from behind. And he's wiggling. Let me go, let me go. And I turn him around, and I go, Robert, where are you going? And this young man looked at me with a wisdom that betrayed his age. And he said, you said you'd give $5 to the kid who can raise his hand the highest, right? And I said, yes, Robert. He goes, well, let me go because I know a way to get to the roof. I was thinking in terms of 3 inches. This child had a vision. This child had an imagination. He broke out of the box of what I thought was possible and did things beyond even my dreams. This is about the next 100 years of this organization. Well, I've witnessed about 7 so far. And I already told you the importance and the impact of this group, but I am telling you right now, in this next 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, the voice of this community must rise. It must rise to inspire people from all communities. It must rise because this democracy, as we know already from January 6th, is fragile. This voice must rise because of the roots and the ancestry represented in this room of people who made a way out of no way, who overcame bigotry and hatred and discrimination, who achieved what others thought was impossible. I believe in this room, and I know in the next 5 to 7 years, impossible things will be achieved. This group will elect more Congress people. This group can elect more senators. Heck, this group may put a president in the White House. I believe our democracy, with you working with everyone else, that we as Americans can find a way to get to the roof. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And now I bring up one of the 2 greatest Rajes I've ever met, Raj Goyle, founder and visionary.
I think we should stay up. Another round of applause for Cory Booker, please. Wow. Truly, truly amazing. How many of you have read Dante's Inferno? I know it's already been a long night, so I'm going to move this along. I'm Raj Goyle. I'm the co-founder of Impact. I am a New York City tech entrepreneur. First time I ever said that, actually, but it is true. But I'm here really in the capacity as a former Kansas State rep. Now, Kansas is a rectangular state in the middle of the country. Usually you fly over on the way to Napa or wherever you go. My friend Michael Reardon here, a Wichita native. But I mention it only because some of you were in this room, who are in this room, in 2006 had the audacity to help a then slightly pudgier guy from Wichita who had a fancy job at a think tank called the Center for American Progress, some friends here from that, who had the audacity to go back to Wichita and try to take out the most right-wing member of the Kansas State House in the house that Koch built. And thanks to many of you, I was able to do that after knocking on 8,000 doors. Thank you very much. And the reason I say that, and that was great, now it's ancient history, that's 4 careers ago for me, and I was very proud to serve 4 years in the Kansas House, but the point of it is that when we did that, and I went to see Raghu when he was the head of the DLCC there, and we're going to get to Kumar Barve later tonight, is there was no playbook. So when you wanted to go do this, I had my fancy Harvard law degree. I could out-debate policy. I could, CNN. I could go do all this stuff. I didn't know a goddamn thing about how you get elected in America. What it meant was that you had to raise money, calling people up for $50 checks, $100 checks. I still remember when a $50 check from some of you in this room was a big deal. And I had to do a flyer and a storm door. And that Harvard law degree was useless when I had to figure out how to get the dog to shut up when you're knocking the door. So it turns out the most important thing, dog treats in your right pocket. The senator and other people who have knocked doors know how that works, because if you get the dog to shut up, you get another 30 seconds with the voter, and the voter always remembers, he's that guy, particularly that brown guy, who gave my dog a treat. And so the mission of Impact was pretty simple, which was nobody should have to do that playbook from scratch again. There was nobody who taught me how to knock a door. Nobody knew how to roll that flyer up. And so that was the very simple premise of when, in fact, my friend Amish Shah is here. Before I had the good fortune of meeting Deepak Raj, I wrote a memo that said we should have an Emily's list for brown people, and here we are. So, and the most important point of that journey was when I was going around babbling as I do at these events in New York, and Deepak Raj had the audacity and the gumption to say, I'll take that meeting, and he did the most important thing you can ever do, particularly for an entrepreneur, is he wrote the first check. Then Deepak Raj put his shoulder to the wheel, and he gave more money, and he got all his friends to give, and I was so honored to be his co-founder. And obviously, let's give one more round of applause to Deepak, because these things don't happen without that. I'll just say it warms my heart more than you know, the stories I just have to tell you from around. Aftab, who's been mentioned, he reminded Deepak and I that we supported him in his, what was it, Aftab? The clerk of courts? What the hell do you call it? The Hamilton County Clerk of Court race in 2017. I forgot we did that. And then he ran for Congress, and now he's the mayor. And I can look around this room, and at every table I see local judges. I see incredible Hill staffers. Obviously, I see my law school classmate, Raja Krishnamurthy, my dear friend, Ro Khanna. These guys are incredible leaders. There's so many people in this room, and it is remarkable that what has happened here. And I'll just say this thing in closing before we give it over to our MC. When I ran, the fundamental premise when you were brown and running was, how do you win despite your funny name? Despite your funny name. And those of you who have been around politics a while, you remember the Bradley effect. An African-American who was supposed to be the mayor of Los Angeles, and he was leading in the polls. And he didn't win because people lie in a poll, and they weren't ready to pull the lever in that polling booth for a black man, and in politics it became known as the Bradley effect. We had to discount in our polling because it showed that if wherever I was, we said, let's take 5 points off of it. And we had to think about, I wasn't a Christian in Wichita. How do I ask for that? We spent 4 hours answering the question, are you a Christian? Because I had to get every syllable just right. And now what I'm here to tell you, and these people are the testament, the heroes in this room, you now win because you're Indian American, because you're Desi. What a transformation in our country. And it has been in my short lifetime there, and I will before I hand it over to the MC, I've got to say one last thing. I am very hesitant Raghu agree with me here, to ever correct Chuck Schumer. I'm actually a little hesitant to talk to Chuck Schumer. You never know. Usually I leave my wallet's lighter, and that's why he's so effective. But he said that the Indian American community, he said several times, are the future. That's bullshit. We're the present. Right now, we're not the future. Look at this room. Right now, we are running American politics. And as Cory Booker so eloquently said and Hakeem Jeffries said, this room is running the show. And I think, obviously, we're only just getting started, but it is right now, right here, that it's happening. So we can't thank you enough on behalf of the board, on behalf of the co-founders, for what you've done. It's very inspiring. They are serving wine, which is my cue to turn it over to our incredible MC. Where is Nimesh Patel? Oh, you're right over here. I'm so apologetic. I didn't know where you were. So Nimesh is incredible. We're so happy that he's our MC tonight. He is an Emmy-nominated writer and touring comedian. He's performing at the Warner Theater in D.C. here in November, and for a New Yorker here at the Garden, that is a big, I think as our president says, that's a big effing deal, at the Garden in December, and he has the distinction of being the first South Asian to write for Saturday Night Live, if I'm not mistaken. So give it up here for Nimesh Patel.
Hi. One more time for Representative Jeffries, Senator Booker, and the rest. Thank you guys so much. I won't take too much of your time as I have the honor of introducing you to your dinner. Okay, that's the crowd it's going to be, so that's the crowd it's going to be. My name is Nimesh Patel. For those of you that don't know, I am the first Google result when you Google Nimesh Patel. And every other Nimesh Patel is a doctor. Which means when my mom Googles her son, she gets me and a list of everything she wanted me to be. It's quite a privilege to be here in Washington, D.C. I love coming to D.C. because everyone here is very informed. Everyone here is very informed. If ignorance is bliss, D.C. is the saddest place in the world. And everyone here is also just a little annoyed. Just a little annoyed. You all work for the government, and yet you hate the government. Fix it. Okay, not a political crowd. Got it. Listen, I could bring up Bobby Jindal, but he didn't want to show up. So in lieu of that, I'll tell you that your program will resume right around dinner. We have an awards presentation and musical performances by Ari Afsar, Nikhil Saboo, and Rizwan Jagani. Before that, please enjoy your dinner. Food looks very good. The guacamole and lemon was incredible. Have a good night. I'll see you guys soon. Thank you, guys. Bye. Program this evening, I have the honor and privilege to bring up Neel Makhija. You guys know Neel Makhija? If you don't know Neel, he wrote his introduction. So please take it with a grain of salt. Neel Makhija has been the longest and best-serving executive director of Impact. Under his tremendous, powerful leadership, Impact has grown this idea into a full-fledged organization with genuine impact, pun intended. Again, he wrote this. Neel has guided and supported countless Indian American and South Asian leaders aspiring to public service over his tenure as executive director. Neel even took leave from Impact recently to run for office himself for Commissioner of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's third largest county of nearly 1 million people, and he won. A round of applause for that. Neel is now poised to be the first Indian American at that level in the history of Pennsylvania in a seat that was recently held by governor until 2017. After his primary, he returned to Impact as president. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now my distinct honor to bring up the very handsome, successful Neel Makhija, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up for Neel Makhija.
Yeah, I wrote the handsome part. Thank you, everyone. If you'll please just have a seat, we're going to get to some really fantastic awards and honor some really wonderful people in our community who have deserved to be honored for some time by us. So my name is Neil Makija. I know many of you very personally. It has been such an honor and a thrill to be the executive director for now 3 years. And when I took the role, the previous executive directors, let me just acknowledge them for a second. The first was Gautam Raghavan, who many of you know, he's right here, who serves as assistant to the President of the United States and is charged with overseeing the personnel, the appointment of personnel to over 4,000 seats in the federal government. And Gautam has had an incredible job, and it's no surprise that he has helped staff the most diverse administration in United States history. So thank you, Gautam. And she could not be here tonight, but the second executive director was Aruna Miller, who is now serving as the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. So I knew I had to do something interesting if I was going to do anything other than this. And I had a tremendous privilege to have the chance to run for office just this year, as Nimish mentioned. And thank you for the preemptive applause. But what I want to tell people briefly is that I ran for office once 7 years ago when Impact was just getting formed. I was at the first Impact event. Senator Booker was there. It was just in its infancy. And at that time, I was running in a district which Raghu knows because he was my consultant, was pretty much impossible. Yeah, he told me to move to the southeastern Pennsylvania, which 7 years later I met my wife, I did. You know, I didn't quite know what I was doing, but I had the passion and the interest to serve, and I knew how important it was. What has happened in the intervening 7 years is really extraordinary. Because one, I met this community, I met Raghu, I met Deepak, I met Raj, I met people who have built this organization and been in this for much longer than I have, who have been the pioneers, who have really helped establish this organization and set it on the path. So what happened in the intervening 7 years? So back then I would have been the first Indian American. I wasn't, but what we did is we did elect the first Indian American in the Pennsylvania legislature, Nikhil Saboo, who's here today. We did elect the first South Asians in the state house who are not here today, Tariq Khan and Arvind Venkat. And so even in those few years, I wasn't the first, but those came very quickly after, thanks to much of the work and inspiration of many, including the members of Congress you saw today, from Pramila Jayapal this morning, who had a really extraordinary session, to the members who are here tonight, were recognized earlier. It's really something that we've seen in a brief period of time, and I've seen it now personally, because in my recent election, I wasn't thought to have a chance when I first ran. The political establishment, locally, they had their picks, they had their favorites, the articles were written, there was going to be an anointed successor. But what they didn't know is that we had this community, and that made the difference, and that's why I'm going to be the first Indian American ever at that level in Pennsylvania. And that's just the beginning, because what is so important about our representation is the ripple effect that it has on others. I have seen children in my community, which is the highest Asian American population in the state at 9%, and they are inspired. I got text messages on election day of people taking photos with their parents after they forced them to vote because they weren't 18. It's really an extraordinary thing to think about the next generation, and Valerie Kaur made that beautiful keynote today at the summit where she talked about our past and our future and how we are sitting at the middle able to witness the direction that we're going now in the country. So our theme today was 100 years since Bhagat Singh Thind, and as has been mentioned, that was an infamous time in US history when the Supreme Court, which has the phrase equal justice under the law written above it, decided that we as Indian Americans, as South Asians, and at the same time for Asian Americans, were not eligible to be full citizens of this country. Now that changed a few times. So in 1946, there was a compromise that people were then able to naturalize, but only 100 people per year were allowed to come from India, which was a net negative because more people were leaving. So they said, well, let some of you become citizens and have those rights, but we don't want any more of you. That did not change until the Civil Rights Movement in 1965, when black leaders fought for equality and justice and the ideals, and maybe some of them were not thinking about South Asians and people in our community, but when you fight for those ideals, you are serving people who you haven't yet imagined. And that is what we are doing with Impact. We are recognizing that we are fighting for the betterment of our country as a whole, and it's not simply about the Indian American community, it's about the ideal. And there are two people who we are honoring tonight, thank you. There are two people we are honoring tonight who really understand and embody that. So I think Senator Booker said it very well. We have a giant for justice with us in Vanitha Gupta. We're really thrilled to have here with us and with her whole family. It's an extraordinary family for many reasons that your parents will make you feel bad about when you read everything that they have done collectively. And Kumar Barv, who was the first Indian American in the state legislatures. So I want to invite the first presenter up, so Neha Shah, who's one of our gala co-chairs. Please welcome Neha, who's done a fantastic job helping us put this together tonight. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So I was told to introduce myself, and so first I want to say that I guess I'm the first woman on the stage tonight, as my friend told me. But I'm certainly not going to be the last. There's many luminaries who came before us, and we're here tonight to celebrate some of the most remarkable luminaries, and particularly I have the honor to present the Dr. Shamla Gopalan Harris Award. So just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I'm an entrepreneur, a builder of a business for the last 25 years in the supply chain space, and I'm a supporter of Impact. I'm the gala co-chair, everything that Neil does. But my real claim to fame is being Deepak Raj's neighbor. And so anytime, and I give this as life advice to everybody, when Deepak makes the call, you answer it, and you humbly oblige. And that's what I've done, and it's worked out pretty well for myself. So today, as Neil said, we're honoring really a true icon in civil rights. And although we're of similar age and similar generation, I can certainly say that everything I've heard about this individual is an inspiration to me, and I look up to this person. I want to share a personal story because I had the opportunity to meet the Gupta family several years ago. And for those of you who haven't read the book, $8 and a Dream, please do so, because it really shares the story of really many of you in this room, but all of our parents coming many years ago and with a dream, and this wonderful country giving us all the opportunities that we had. And I remember Raj and Kamla sharing many stories of their two amazing daughters. Both daughters are truly amazing, doing things to really change the world. But specifically for Vanitha, that she was a civil rights hero from a very young age. I mean, she had experiences when they moved across the world in London, where they experienced bigotry and hatred. And from a very young age, she decided to take on use her education, her knowledge, her platform for the betterment of others, those in our community, and then, of course, well beyond our community. And for those of you who haven't heard the story, please learn certainly more about what she's done, of course, as the Assistant Attorney General of the United States, but things she did in her very young age, in her 20s, to support and free the wrongfully incarcerated in Texas, many, many individuals, nearly 50 individuals I heard from her father. So today it is my honor, and I'm not going to read everything because there's so much to say about Vanitha Gupta, but we all know she's the 19th United States Associate Attorney General and serves as the third-ranking official at the Department of Justice. Senator Booker stole our thunder a little bit. She supervises multiple litigating divisions within the Department of Justice, the Civil Division, Civil Rights Division, Antitrust Division, Tax Division, and Environmental and Natural Resources Division, to name a few. And of course, you can learn more about her by reading the program. And so this award that I'm about to present, the Shamla Gopalan Harris Award, is given to an individual who has shown courage, determination, and commitment to allyship and the cause of civil rights for all in the United States. And when I thought about this opportunity and award, I could think of no better person who was more deserving. So please join me with a standing ovation in welcoming Associate Attorney General Vanitha Gupta.
Wow, please sit down. I feel like I should just not give a speech now that I got that the standing ovation. It's better that I just sit down. It is truly inspiring to be here. I don't know, Gautam and Deepak and Raj, whether you remember, and Nick, I think you might have been there. I was at the first gathering where you had leaders who are doing different things around the country. When Project Impact was just this idea, and we were in a New York restaurant. I came into Manhattan, and it was several years ago, and that's when you had this gathering where you were putting together the whole concept. And now look at this room. So please give yourselves a round of applause for caring so much for this country and for civic engagement, but it's really inspiring. I am really honored to be here. I've got friends here who are members of Congress and who are other civil rights advocates, people running domestic violence shelters, organizations that I've been deeply inspired by for years, and you all deserve so much credit for what you do every day. Thank you to the Indian American Impact Project for this award. I'm truly honored. I am also always grateful to be in a room with so many friends. I've been able to reunite and say hello to so many people I haven't seen in some time, and fellow travelers, people who care deeply about civic engagement, about representation, and about democracy. I am especially honored to be receiving an award named after Shamla Gopalan Harris, who was not only a brilliant scientist, which I am decidedly not so, but also an ally and activist in the civil rights movement, and who embodied courage and independence and determination. In accepting this award, though, I am really mindful that progress is not inevitable. It is the result of people who refuse to give up and who work hard, often against the greatest odds, to shore up American democracy and expand legal protections for the most vulnerable among us. When the Supreme Court in 1923 decided that Dr. Bhagat Singh Thind, a US Army veteran and Indian immigrant, could not be granted US citizenship because the, quote, common man would not consider him to be white, it was a decision that also resulted in the revocation of citizenship of dozens of Indian Americans. People didn't simply throw their hands up in despair. Indian Americans and allies, Filipino Americans and people, Black Americans and people from all colors and stripes fought hard. They fought in the courts. They marched in the streets. They actually galvanized to make sure that they could finally garner support for a legislative solution. And in 1946, through the Luce-Celler Act, Congress reversed Thind and allowed Indian Americans to become naturalized citizens. And then it was 2 decades later that we ended exclusion of Asian Americans in this country. It is through similar efforts in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s that helped usher in a new era in our country, where old conceptions of who belonged and who qualified as a citizen and what the true meaning of equality is really changed. decades of organizing and legal strategy built a movement and ultimately changed the course of US history. Dr. Gopalan Harris and countless others marched for civil rights, not just for themselves, not just for her community, for our community, or for one community. She marched because of an interwoven understanding of how our fates are connected, how our lives are interwoven, and how we need each other to make our democracy work. As a lifelong civil rights lawyer, I am proud to follow in that tradition and continue the work of those who came before me to try to build a more perfect union. I'm honored to do this work now, back at the Justice Department, returning this time as the first civil rights lawyer and first Asian American in a top 3 leadership position in this post. The work isn't easy, and it is not nearly complete. We should never be truly satisfied with the status quo. We know we have to fight gun violence in our communities. We know we have to fight the scourge of hate and violent extremism in our country. We know that we have to fight gender-based violence in our country. We know that we have to fight for voting rights and shore up our democracy. We know that we have to fight for reproductive rights so that the next generation of girls and women have actually more rights than we do now, which is a shocking thing when the Supreme Court, for the very first time, contracted a constitutional right last year. It's also true that it takes all of us. It takes being engaged, which to me is exactly what this room is about. It takes all of us asking questions and putting in the work for a more inclusive and healthy democracy. None of us got here on our own. We stand on the shoulders of giants who open doors for us, but also alongside loved ones who make us who we are. And I am honored to be joined today by some very special people in my life. To my husband, Chin, and my sons, Rohan and Chetan, who you are the loves of my life and my supports every day. You keep me anchored, and you cheer me on, even with my constant phone calls when we are interrupting with that interrupt dinner, car rides, games of Scrabble. To my sister, Amita, and her wife, Charlotte, and son, Austin. You are trailblazers in your own right, both professionally and personally, and they are actually the real scientists in this room. And last but never ever least, to the 2 people to whom I owe everything, my mom and dad. They have been huge supporters of Impact from the beginning. And they have put up with all of my choices, however against the grain they were when I was traveling from prison to prison in the great expanse of Texas at the age of 25. And they were wondering, oh my God, what are you doing? Are you alone? Where are you going? But they taught me to ask a lot of questions, and they demonstrated always that unconditional love for family and country, no matter how imperfect, is what matters most. So thank you. And thank you again to Indian American Impact Project for this honor. May you all continue to forge forward in pursuit of justice and a healthy and vibrant democracy. Don't take it for granted. Thank you.
I think my favorite moment of this entire day is when Vinita caught herself there thanking her parents. I think for all of us in the Indian community, we can relate to that as parents and children and grandparents and grandchildren. So another round of applause there. And I must say, for my wife, Monica, Chin, and Vinita are very close friends, so we're honored to see you. I'm here, the last time you'll see me, I swear, but it is an incredible honor because I get to introduce the Dean. So those of you who have been in politics know there is a person in Maryland named Kumar Bharave. Kumar, raise your hand real quick. So how many of you remember when the biggest deal in your life was when you were mentioned in India abroad? Okay, all right. Can we relate to that? Okay, 1995 intern DNC on my wall. Okay. But nobody got as many India Broad mentions as Kumar because he was elected, wait for it, in 1990, okay? I don't think, were there computers in 1990? I'm not even sure. But Kumar Bharave, in all seriousness, has been elected, just think about this, for 33 years. He was 12 when he was elected. And so he gets elected to the Maryland legislature when nobody was elected. So this isn't hyperbolic rhetoric at a gala. Nobody was elected. He had the temerity to say, I'm gonna go run to be a politician. I'm a Desi, and he's been there ever since. So when I started running, when so many people in this room started running, he was our model, and we called him the Dean. And the Dean has never left. He's still there. He has been the majority leader in Maryland, 12 years. Maryland, has changed a lot. There's the politics of Maryland now. Our sense of history isn't so great, but Maryland was tough sledding. It's now changed and become, very solidly blue, but it was because of people like Kumar. His lovely wife, Maureen Quinn, is here. They're a tag team. They are well known in Annapolis. Give them a round of applause. And so I want to bring you up, Kumar, and just give you this award. I'm going to grab it right here. Sorry. And as you well know, the great Neil Makija already spoke eloquently about Dalip Singh Sound, and as did Vineet and others. But there really is no person in this country and in our community who deserves this award more. He has cut checks for all of us who are running. He does it selflessly. He doesn't rush in front of a camera. He's the workhorse guy. He is the guy who we really, we stand on his shoulders, and we're so very, very proud of him. He couldn't personify Impact more. Kumar Bharave, delegate from Maryland, the winner of the Dalip Singh Sound Award. Please join me. Give him a standing ovation. He deserves it.
Yeah, my name is Kumar Prabhakar Barwe, and I won an election in 1990, and almost literally nobody felt in the Indian American community that if you were a Hindu and your middle name was Prabhakar, you could win an election. But fortunately for me, I was too stupid not to know that. So let me first begin by thanking some people who have been very instrumental in my life and in my success. I'll begin with my beautiful wife, Maureen Quinn, who is not only a member of the Maryland Workers' Compensation Commission, but she's the first female chair. And so give it up for her, the first woman to be the chair. I am now a public service commissioner, so we're a two-commissioner family, but she's the chair, so she outranks me, and I'm totally comfortable with that. Let me also thank Ramesh Kapoor, who is literally one of the few Indian Americans who believed in me in 1990 and wrote me my first $500 check. I almost had a heart attack. And Krishna Srinivasa, who did not exactly believe in me immediately, but Ramesh leaned on him, so he wrote me a check as well. And of course, I want to thank IA Impact for who you are and what you have done and how fantastic you've been for our community. But now that I've thanked a small subset of the people who are really, really important to me, let me accept this award on behalf of my grandfather, Shankar Lakshman Gokhale. Shankar Lakshman Gokhale was an Indian man who was the president of Indore, the principal of Indore College. He was kicked out for nefarious political misdeeds that were never proven, but he ended up in, of all places, Schenectady, New York, to be a research scientist for General Electric. He was one of the many, many, many scientists who basically invented television technology at GE. And I have to start with this letter that I found in his notes, which is simply amazing to me. In those days, before the internet, if you wanted to go to a different country and you needed a letter of recommendation, somebody would give it to you and then you would hand it to people. That's how it worked. So here is one of my old pupils, one of the cleverest of them, wishes you to introduce him to your friends in America. So I write to assure you that you may safely commend him. He took his degree, and he goes on, talks about his accomplishments, but for me, the most interesting and telling line, and I'm sure my grandfather was very proud that he wrote this, he said, "He is a Hindu, of course, but his character is very good." Seriously, this was a really positive thing for my grandfather, who came to this country in 1911. And now, of course, we're honoring Dilip Singh Sandh. This award is honoring me, I suppose. And the Singh case has been mentioned several times. And it's been mentioned that several Indian Americans lost their citizenship potentially. And one of them was my grandfather. He had been granted citizenship in 1920 by the county of Schenectady. Imagine that, the county of Schenectady. And he had to go to court to sue for his citizenship. And there was a case, the United States versus Gokhale, the United States versus my grandfather. And the Circuit Court of Appeals found that Gokhale was in fact not eligible for naturalization, for he is conceitedly a Hindu, and under that case, a Hindu is not a white person as the statute defines the phrase. So basically, my grandfather couldn't be an American because he wasn't white, which is Raghu Devaguptapu's brilliant TV ad for my campaign in 2016 basically had me say. Now, it turns out that in 1928, when the Supreme Court of the United States moved to have his appeal vacated, they did it with the understanding that he would be permitted to maintain his citizenship, which means, in effect, they grandfathered my grandfather. So here we are. So, you know, as it was said in the Hamilton musical, look at where we are, look at where we started. My grandfather had to fight to bring his family to this country. My mother was born in this country in Schenectady. I was born in Schenectady. It's a good place to be from, apparently. My father, Prabhakar Raghunath Barwe, was actually, he and my mother got married, obviously, and they made a decision to settle in the United States after having lived in London. They didn't have enough money for a honeymoon, but my mother figured, hey, I'll move in with him in London, that'll be a honeymoon for me. And in any case, he was sponsored for citizenship by his boss at the Veterans Administration. My father was an architect who designed hospitals for our veterans, and it was one of the greatest honors of his life. And then fast forward to moi, I actually managed to get elected in 1990 when no Indians, not no Indians, Ramesh was there and a few others, very few Indians thought I could win, but you want to know something? The people of Gaithersburg and Rockville believed in me. And look at where we are now. I mean, now you can't throw a rock without hitting an Indian elected official in the head. And so here I am, Kumar Barve, our vice president is of Indian origin. We have fantastic members of Congress. We're going to have members of the U.S. Senate. We have a lieutenant governor in Aruna Miller, and she is so awesome. And here I am at the Kennedy Center receiving an award just like Led Zeppelin. I want to thank Indian American Impact, I want to thank all of you for the work that you've done and for the work that you will do. And I can only say, look at where we had been, look at where we are, imagine where we are going. It is going to be incredible because there is no limit. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Congratulations, and congratulations again to Attorney General Vanita Gupta. One more time for them, please, everybody. Representation matters, as we all know, whether it be at the highest levels of government or in the arts. With that said, it's my honor to bring up an amazing violist, Mr. Rizwan Jagani, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up for Rizwan Jagani.
Thank you all so much. I wanted to just introduce the piece that I'm going to play. So a little bit about me. On the first day of Ramadan, the holiest month of the Islamic calendar, I came out as a gay Muslim. And that's been a crazy journey for me because the biggest thing was reconciling my faith and who I was and who I was meant to walk on this planet. And that's why I prepared this song especially for you all today by one of my favorite composers with whom I actually share a birthday, Kun Fayakun by A.R. Rahman. I'm going to invite my friends up here now. You heard them earlier. You're going to hear them again. Give it up for Ari Afsar and Nikhil Saboo.
Ari, hello, hello. How's everyone doing?
What's up?
This is going to be a closing out of the night. We hope that you have enjoyed this incredible day. What an incredible room to be surrounded by so many beautiful people and so many inspiring individuals that represent our community. I am Ari Afsar. I originated the Chicago production of Hamilton as Eliza back in 2016. I was in Wedding Season, which was on Netflix last year. Anyway, you can go look it up. But one of the biggest things, before we do this final performance with Incredible, and I want to introduce Nikhil Saboo, who was the first South Asian to play Connor Murphy in Dear Evan Hansen. And I just want to talk a little bit about, I'm just going to go into the song and share a little bit about what we are doing here today. A couple weeks ago, I had the privilege and honor of interviewing Neil. I'm going to embarrass you again. Interviewing Neil and talking about what Impact is all about and how we can actually move forward. One thing that you mentioned earlier today, and the incredible Valerie Kaur mentioned earlier today, is how do we take generations before and the generation ahead and become the bridge. And one thing that we kept saying over and over and over again was, we are ready. We are ready to be the next generation that is actually going to be making the change. So I'm just going to go straight into the song. And here we go. The song is called We're Ready, and I think you guys are going to know quickly how to join along, and so we hope that you can. All the things that I was never told, all the lies that I was sold, made my pride go up in smoke. Keep my head down and I'll be just fine. Make me feel like I'm a part, but you'll never be in charge. Now I'm treading through the water when there's only one. How can we be seen? Just as a daughter, well, I gotta do better than their dreams. You ready? I'm ready. No, not staying the hell away. You ready? We're ready. Oh, 'cause I've always had a place. In a moment we changed everything. Finally see me on the screen, and my elders can't believe the generation that is breaking things. And the moments need to last from 100 years just in the past. And my work is never done when there's only one. How can we be seen? And I know just as a son, well, I gotta do better than their dreams. You ready? I'm ready. No, not send the hell away. You ready? We're ready. Oh, 'cause there's always been a place.
Rizwan, Nikhil, and Ari, everybody. Keep it going for them. On behalf of Impact, that concludes our evening. I know we were all ready for the after party, which is at Georgetown Marriott. Thank you guys so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your evenings. I'm Nikhil Saboo. Have a good night. Bye. Thank you.